Hello, YouTube fans. This is TheSkullKlown. I want to talk about graphics in video games. Now, to me, graphics in video games don't make a game. It's just a visual of think about it like, you know how CGI was, you know how CGI used to look like back in the day? And it's funny too because CGI literally started with video games and then eventually branched off into movies and all that because they were starting to get really, really good. For the most part. And if you see some of the 90s movies with bad CGI, a good example is Spawn, the movie. I love that movie, by the way. It's a good movie. But the cape at the time and the devil at the time, they look pretty good, especially the cape. But now when you look at Spawn, the cape looks like shit. It looks bad CGI, but yeah, it has a charm to it. It does. It does have a charm to it. But the devil, the main devil, the main demon of everything should look better, you know? So who knows if they ever go back and change it for like Blu-ray or something like that. Who knows? Even though that would be cool, that should be a different story for another day, you know? Or like taking old school movies that have really bad CGI and just touching them up a bit to make it look good today. You know, you have the technology, might as well do it, you know? That is if the studios are not fucking lazy. You know, like, don't be that lazy, man. Seriously. What do you have to, like, seriously, if you're that lazy, then don't even, like, re-release that movie, you know? But, I just want to talk about, video game graphics anyways. You guys know that, you know, like I said before, graphics don't make a game. What makes a game is the story, the gameplay, yes, the music, but it's mostly, some people might say, just the story, but obviously there's more to that. You know, what's the world? Because sometimes there is no story in a video game. You know, sometimes it's just the world or how you play in the game affects you as a player. Basically, that's very old school in a way. When you play a video game, for example, like Super Mario Brothers, or in an Atari game, yes, they might have a story on the manual and all that, but if you don't have the manual, how will you know what story it is? You know, you're just making up a story as you go along while you play the game, you know? Which is fine, to be quite honest with you. I actually miss that with video games, you know? Like, it would be cool, like, yes, you have a story for a game, but at the same time, it's not going to affect not even nothing that you do in the game, mainly because what you do in the game is completely different than what you're doing, than what is completely different from what the story is trying to is doing. Basically, the story is just there just for funsies. You know, like think of it as like, here's a game. It has fun with its gameplay style and stuff like that. The story is just there. You know, and you can, and if you want to piece it together or chew it a little bit, basically, just to get more taste in your mouth, basically, of how much you want to be involved with the game, then you could do that, you know. But again, going back, this is not about storytelling in games, although it is important. It's what drives a game. It's what drives a narrative, and it's also what drives reasons why we get gameplay. All right, so story is very important when it comes to video games. All right, even the most simplest games that are out there, like again, like I mentioned, the Atari games had story in them. You know, even though they were simple as shit. You know, some of them. Other ones were confusing as hell, like Raiders of the Lost Ark. I tried to play that game without a manual, and I had to get rid of the game because I'm just like, what am I doing? Pressing all these buttons and everything like that. I mean, there's only one button on the Atari controller, so you're trying to like pick things, fight things, and it's not working. So most likely it's the system itself. You have to like mess with it, which is cool. You know, I kind of miss systems like that. Again, I wasn't born in the Atari era or anything like that, but I respect the Atari era because I played so many Atari games, you know. But going back with video game graphics, when you see video game graphics now, they have evolved great, obviously, but something has always been missing, you know. Something's always been missing. To at least for me, the last time we actually got graphics that expand the imagination was literally the PS3 era, in my opinion. Because once we got to the PS4 era, you already hit the limits of graphics. And I've said this before. I even told my friend about this. My friend agreed with me when I hanged out with him. Now it's all about lighting and stuff like that. I remember seeing stuff on Facebook too when people said that Sony or Microsoft, some studio said that that we hit our limit with graphics and people want to laugh at it and all that stuff. And I'm like, I already knew that. I've been saying that for years. We've been hitting the top end of graphics already, guys. How more can you go? We already hit the graphics. Now it's all about different art styles of graphics and different lighting. Now it's all about that. That's what I care about with graphics now, because we already hit the peak of graphics. We can't go any farther than that, or else it becomes too realistic that it's just that no one doesn't care. It's true. There's a type of realism that you can do with video games, but once it hits to the point that it's become too real, then at that point just make a fucking movie. That's just me. That's just me. It's not a game anymore. It's a fucking movie. You know? Like, for crying out loud, Heavy Rain is not even like that. Heavy Rain has this type of art style that, yes, looks real, but you know it's not extremely real. And yes, that's because of the limitations of the hardware, which is a good thing. People think that there's the limitations of a hardware, that's a bad thing. No, that's a good thing. You take advantage of that. That's how we got one of the best video games of all time, because of the limited stuff that we've seen in graphics. Why do you think we have awesome things from the PS1 era and the PS2 era? You know? And also in the Super Nintendo era. You know? So, graphics, again, are not as what it used to be. Graphics are great nowadays, yes. But if you look back at the PS1 era, or even the Super Nintendo era, or even the Atari era, even though it's just a block, it had personality. It had substance. It had style. It had creativity. You know, especially if you look at the cover of the Atari art book for depicting what's in the game. You know, it just left your imagination run wild and stuff like that, you know? And then when you play the game, it wasn't like that, but it left you the imagination of like, wow. You know, it's almost like, when you play these Atari games, it's almost like playing a very old, it's like watching an old school radar from like the 50s and 60s, you know? Telling where you're going or who you are or who you're fighting, you know? That's how it reminds me of, in my opinion. And today's graphics don't have that appeal. Everything wants to be hogwash. Everything wants to be censored because everyone's afraid to freaking make a character like I made in my game, Columbus. Yeah, just take Christopher Columbus, take out Chris, and put Kill, and then Lumbus on it. There you go. There's your character. And he's a parody. He's supposed to be the Elmer Fudd of my game, basically. But you can't make a character like that for some reason. I mean, you still can if you're an indie dev or something like that, or you're doing something different, basically. You have a different company that will embrace any type of newness and uniqueness. That way they can stand out there and be like, yo, these games need a dose of poison, like Vince McMahon said. I'm gonna inject WWE with poison, you know? And that's what we need. We need to inject the video game industry with some poison. And not some poison. If you know that reference, you deserve a cookie. But not that type of poison that will kill the industry. A poison that will actually wake up the industry and realize, holy fucking shit, we're missing stuff out that we could be doing right now. And yes, we've talked about this a whole bunch of times in this channel, and other channels have said this too. But at the end of the day, the graphics that we see today, a good example is some of the Grand Theft Auto graphics you see on the PS2 era. Look at San Andreas on the PS2. The graphics actually don't really hold up, obviously. And when it first came out too, it wasn't that good either, compared to Vice City graphics, and yes, it was way better than Grand Theft Auto 3 graphics, but Vice City graphics really had good graphics. Even Bully had better graphics than San Andreas. But the reason San Andreas had those graphics is because, yes, the world was open like crazy, and they put everything that they wanted into that game. The only thing that was a hindrance was how the character models look. But that did not matter. Why? Because they had character. They had personality. All right, the world still felt real, still felt lived in. All right, seriously, you know. To me, I still to this day, I still think Rockstar's early GTA games, the ones that hold up graphic wise, is still Vice City and Bully, in my opinion. We're not talking about the PS3 era. We're talking about PS2 era. For right now here. Um, Another thing for the Super Nintendo, look at Final Fantasy 4, 5, and 6. Especially 5. 5, they embrace the humanness. You know, stuff that you see in Scott Pilgrim where things are over their head and stuff like that. That game embraced being a game. And that's why I love Final Fantasy 5. Final Fantasy 5 knows it's a video game, so it embraces it. You know, when a character feels emotion, the eyes bulged out, you know, like a cartoon character and shit like that. If they fall in love, they show like a little heart on top of them and shit like that, you know. Yeah, they have like a heart icon on top of them and shit like that. So again, Final Fantasy V is very expressive, very expressive. And then when we get to Final Fantasy VI, it's just, yes, the characters are expressive, but it's mostly the models that are more expressive. Like Terra's hair was blown in the wind and stuff like that, and you can feel the wind on her skin and stuff like that, just because of the way the animation looks. Again, it's beautiful, fucking beautiful, and still looks great to this day. You know, people still talk about too that, you know how you have graphics on the outside of the field, then you have graphics inside the battle, how they were so different. Like outside of the battle, you were this tiny, but inside the battle, you were like this big. In Final Fantasy VI, that wasn't a problem. The same character you saw in the battlefield is the same character that you see in the open world, which was awesome. Which was probably one of the first things that this company has ever done. Maybe other companies have did it before. Square did it, but when Square did it back in the day, it was just really, really freaking cool. It just looked at freaking great, in my opinion. Again, they took advantage of the hardware. They really did. They really did. And that's all you had to do. Yes, you had limitations. Yes, even you had limitations, you know? You think these video game developers, when they first started making a video game, you think they knew everything? No, they were limited as hell. Even the tool engine that they were using could have not be as limited that they thought they was, but it was still limited for them, you know? I still think to this day, excuse me, I still think to this day that their Atari 2600 wasn't really pushed to its max. And it's proven that it hasn't. Mainly because you have people that are messing with the Atari 2600 and can literally watch a movie on the Atari 2600. Yeah, it might look grainy, old school-ish, you know, you're watching a movie on a CRTV and it's kind of static a little bit and it has those lines. Yeah, it might have that, but guess what? You can still watch it. You actually watch it in a movie on your Atari 2600. That's what I'm talking about. The console wasn't pushed to its limit. And it's sad. You know, it's sad that some of these video game companies didn't push it to their max, but gamers had to after the system was dead. To me, going back to the PS1 era also, PS1 didn't push the limits of the PS1 in my opinion. It didn't. It didn't push the max, in my opinion. Same thing with the PS2. Same thing with the PS3. All right? I still think to this day, those systems were never pushed to its maximum of quality of what you can actually do with that system, basically. But that's okay. You didn't have to. Because it showed the limitations of the developers of when they were making these characters, the story, the game. Obviously, the story is simple. The story is easy, you know. Especially if you work in an RPG Maker. Obviously, you don't have a budget. Your budget is your unlimited of imagination, basically. Because when it comes to a big giant studio, you can't just fuck around. You know, you can't just fumble and shit like that. You need to be consistent of what you need to do, basically. At least in my opinion. I'm not I don't work in the video game industry, but just because, you know, I did made a video game and I have an experience of how to understand how video games work, which is a great thing of why RPG Maker is such a great tool to use in other systems that are like RPG Maker, basically. You know, and RPG Maker does get a bad rap, which I can understand why, but there's a lot of games out there that well, that started in RPG Maker, they got revamped to what we see today, basically. But it still feels like it's in RPG Maker. That's why some people look at some RPG Maker games that were in RPG Maker, and then, you know, things changed, like graphic wise and all that, and then it became the game that you see. And people kind of complain about the RPG Maker games because it's like you're not pushing the limitations of the tool engine. All you're doing is something that you see in Undertale, basically. Like you're just going around and you're not really fighting, even though maybe that's a bad example. But you know, there's some RPG Maker games out there that just do horror stuff and not really gameplay stuff. They want to do more atmospheric or more puzzle-based games and stuff like that. Because a lot of people complain about that. Because that's why RPG Maker gets a bad rap. So when you hear someone that's making a game in RPG Maker, some people might be like, oh, so it's just going to be one of those generic RPG Maker games that doesn't really have a foundation or something to seek into when it comes to gameplay or something like that. Good atmosphere, not bad of story, not bad of characters, but gameplay, there's nothing to chew on, basically. It's almost like a version of, you could say Heavy Rain, because Heavy Rain doesn't really have gameplay. It has gameplay, like you have to move around and shake and all that, and if someone tries to hit you, you have to dodge or something like that, obviously. So there's stuff like that. So, but most people might look at that. It's kind of funny, because if you say that to RPG Maker Fest games, I like that. Why would you say something, you wouldn't say that to a game like Heavy Rain, right? You know? So it's kind of weird. It is, it's kind of weird. But to me, it never mattered, in my opinion. But I can see what people are arguing about, you know, like, oh, you're using this RPG Maker game, but you're not using it to its max. You're just using it to tell your story, make it in a way that is kind of non-playable. You know, it's not really a game that you fight. It's a more game that you experience and explore, kind of like that movie, kind of like that video game Journey. Remember that video game Journey? It's a really good game, really good game. And it's not even about like combat or anything. It's literally just going around the world and just enjoying what the people created, basically. But you'd be surprised how many people dislike that. People just want to play a game and live in that world instead of traveling through a world and thinking that there's nothing to do. You're basically at a theme park. You're at Six Flags. You're at Disneyland, basically, you know? So, and I completely understand why people don't like that at all. And trust me, I'm not a big fan of that either if you're gonna do that type of route. But at the same time, there's different ways you can always do it. You know, there's a reason why Undertale and Omari and all stuff like that became fucking awesome, you know? And Omari is different. Omari embraces the whole thing of what I was talking about with RPG Maker, you know? It's like, oh, you guys want a battle mechanic system? Oh, I'll give you a battle mechanic system, motherfucker. It's like that, you know? And you're over here like, good. You know, it's about damn time. Someone literally told them to shut the fuck up. You know? But I know this is about graphics, but this goes to everything with video games, you know? Because look at the games that I talked about. Undertale, Omari, look at those graphics. You know? People will talk shit. Some people won't even play those games because the graphics are on like Final Fantasy VII Remake. And Final Fantasy VII Remake has nice graphics, but compared to the original Final Fantasy VII on PS1, I rather take those graphics than any day. Why? Because they have a charm to them. Those Lego graphics that a lot of people hate, but I still like it. They have a charm to them that can never be matched, that can never be outdone, basically. You know, there's even people that grab those type of, there's even people on PC with Final Fantasy VII that literally made the characters models so fucking awesome and great that you see something like an Avant Children, but the models that you play as is literally, if you ever played or ever seen Dragon Quest V for the PS2, it's like that. And that's really my main goal when it comes to like my game, if it ever comes out to the public, basically, like full public, I remade it and everything like that. Those are the type of graphic style that I'm aiming for, you know? You know, you have your characters walking, you know, right next to each other like in Dragon Quest, but you have those freaking graphics that you see in Dragon Quest 5 on the PS2. You know, it's just, to me, when you know you're limited on certain graphics, you dialogue, you don't turn you don't turn the knob down of graphics. What you do is something that you see what Nintendo did with Super Smash Bros. Melee. Those graphics still hold up to this day, guys. Good God. Those models look fucking good. They look good. And guess how much they had to spend on that game on Melee? 18 months. They spent 18 months making that game, and the freaking and the models look good like that? Seriously, even the models on Final Fantasy 13 still look good. Even the model from freaking Grand Theft Auto 4 looks good. These models look good because you know why? They knew the limitations of what they had with the system. So you know what they did? They compromised and they buckled down on how much this system is capable of to put these type of models. And they took advantage of that. You know? They did. They took advantage of that. Some of them might have to, you know, be more flexible than others, like GTA 4, mainly because you had a whole bunch of models that would look the same, obviously. So they couldn't be that much detail, but detail enough that's still using the engine of the PS3, basically, you know, or the engine that the system's running on, basically, you know. But graphics nowadays, it seems like these companies don't want to create any character that stands out, like Zidane from Final Fantasy 9, or freaking or what is it? Or even what is it? Like a character like what is it? Quinlan or Kina, what some people might even call it. You know that what is it? That blue mage with the freaking ton. It looks like a chef and shit like that. You know, to be honest, I think it's a clown. But yeah, I mean, characters like that. You know, like let me go over here, guys. Sorry about that, real quick. You know, let me pause it real quick. Okay, guys, I got a few PlayStation games here that I want to point out. So Spyro, these are all PS1 games, by the way. Look at Spyro the Dragon. All right, look at the graphics that you have here. Look at these models right here. You see, they stand out. You know, this is why I love the PS1 era so much. I don't want to overhype it and all that. You guys know I made a previous video of just like, hey guys, like, you know, don't live in the past, go to the future, and not to say you can't look at the past and learn from it. You can, but look at these models that you see in the cover. You know, and then you see these two also. You know, this is again going back. This is why I like the PS2 era, because there were game developers that looked at the system that they had, and they were like, could we make actually human characters? We could, but could we? But we could make a purple dragon, a penguin, a kangaroo, a giant yeti. Sounds cool. A sorceress reptile, and a nice, sexy Jessica Rabbit. What was it? Nice, sexy, what is it? Lola Bunny before Lola Bunny, I think. When did this came out? Let's see. 2000. Let's see. When the Space Jam came out? This game was probably doing development during Space Jam, right? So, let's see. The original Space Jam, not that god-awful fucking... No, I'm fine. I haven't seen Space Jam 2. So, to me, it's just... what Ready Player 2 should have been. So, just goes... Okay, it came out in 1996. So, way before that. You see that? Other shit inspired other shit. Alright? So, again, a good example right there. Really good example when... You know that you can't make human graphics in a certain genre of a system, mainly because how limited you have it also, but limited to the console itself. So you'd be like, okay, might as well just do this, you know? Now, every video game company that you see now wants to make characters that are basically human, instead of characters that stand out. You know? And the thing is, too, this is probably not a great example because this game is good, too. But look at this. Final Fantasy 9. Look at the colorful characters out in this cover. Alright? The colorful characters out in this cover. And some people look at this type of cover and they'll be like, we'll never get something like this again. Just because, these characters are not marketable enough. Oh, no, Vivi should not look that small. Zidane should not look like that. You know, why does Steiner look bulky like that? Make him more thin. Or some shit like that. You know, it's crazy. You know, it is just really, really crazy. And it's also sad. It's really freaking sad, bro. It's sad that these type of characters that we can see, you know, that will probably never come back. You know, that's why a lot of people love Kingdom Hearts, because you have this character that's dressed as Mickey Mouse, basically. A boy, a human boy, by the way, dressed as like Mickey Mouse, but he's an anime character, obviously. More manga character. I know a lot of people might be upset about that. Oh, Final Fantasy and Kingdom Hearts is not anime. Yes, it is. Came from a Japanese company, and they draw like anime. They draw like anime styles. They draw like manga style characters, don't they? There you go. And what are you going to see? What are you going to say with this one? You know? Come on, guys. They live in Japan. It's the same thing when we make something and we take it from Looney Tunes or Disney. You know? So just saying. But again, this is another human character here too. But guess what? Aya Brea stands out. You know? This is in the PS1 era. Right? Aya Brea stands out. She has a freaking unique look. Sexy as hell. Seriously, man. This game still holds up to this day. Alright? It is. It still holds up to this day. And the spiritual successor that just came out not that long ago, I really want to play it. I really, really want to play Parasite Mutant. So, when I ever get a chance to play that game, I will show it off. Either way, I can. But here's a good example of not having great graphics, but it's still fun as hell. This game, Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. This game is so freaking good. It expands from the first game. While the first game, which I still do miss some games doing that because everything needs to be open and all that stuff. And again, I get that. But I'm not a fan of open worlds all that much. I love hub worlds though. I love hub world games like Super Mario 64, Crash Bandicoot, Spyro. I love hub worlds. Reasons why I put that in my game, you know. It's so good. And plus there's so much places that you can go. You can say the same thing with an open world game, but with an open world game, it feels more like, oh, you can't go everywhere just yet. Even though you could do that in hub world games too, but with hub worlds, you can literally see what's out there and you'll be like, okay, cool. All right, cool. You know, I could point out Super Mario Sunshine, even though I never played it, but there's that if anyone wants to point that out. But this one right here, man, this game right here is freaking dope. All right, it does expand with a little bit of the characters. They can actually talk with each other more. Who would have thought? And the whole castle. This is the grandfather of you exploring the freaking castle in Hogwarts. And there was also a Game Boy Color version that did that, 1 and 2, basically. But check those out if you ever get a chance. So look at clips online. They're really fucking good because it's more connected to the books and it's kind of cool. The Harry Potter Game Boy Color versions are connected to the books and movies, which is fucking dope in my opinion. It's like a whole different universe of Harry Potter that you never freaking see at all whatsoever, which is sad because I think those games need to be remastered. Those games need to be remastered. Seriously. And don't make it like those graphics that you see what Square Enix is doing with Octopath Traveler. Please, I'm tired of that shit. I am. I got nothing against 8-bit graphics and all that. You guys know me with that. I love 8-bit graphics. I love N64 Super Nintendo graphics. You guys know that. But when you know certain games should have certain types of graphics and a studio just keeps pushing a certain type of graphic style, you only hear like, oh, so this is what you're gonna do for all these fucking games? You know, I feel sorry for the fan base, you know? That's why some people made fun of saying that, oh, I can't wait for a Parasite Eve return, but it's just going to look 8-bit, you know? Because people are fucking tired of it. People are tired of it. They see Square Enix's bullshit, you know? It's like, you don't want to put, how come Octopath Traveler, Octopath Zero and all that stuff don't have high-end graphics that you see in Final Fantasy VII Remake? You see? It's because they don't give a shit. They never gave a crap. They want to do it. They want to do it with games that will think they will make the money, even though no one doesn't give a shit. No one doesn't give a shit, you know? It's turning really dark in here. Sorry. But let me put the light on. But there we go. So anyways, here's another game that has human characters in it. And the graphics in this one compared to this one, it is night and day. And compared to this one also, it's night and day. These are very, very different graphics of human character models. And they were limited, obviously. But they knew the limitations of what they had. So what they made Aya Brea stand out. They made her stand out with a black jacket, blue pants, black shoes, and they made her blonde. They made her a snow bunny. See? Blonde hair, blue eye, apple pie. Medica. No. If you know that reference, you deserve a cookie. But this one right here pays homage to the 64. I mean, I keep saying Nintendo 64. More of the Super Nintendo era. This game does belong in the Super Nintendo era. It just looks that good. And but the characters are really cool. There's multiple characters. Again, like, it's just really, really, really fun. And I haven't got the remastered of this game because I already owned it. And I'm glad people can actually finally play this game. But I think Sqawn is just muddied down on it. I don't know. But I should see more about Saga Frontier more. Because there was a sequel, Saga Frontier 2, which I have seen, but I never picked it up. Mainly because I haven't beaten this one. So I want to beat this one. Just me as a gamer. But hey, summer's almost close. You know, I mean, I am on spring vacation right now, so maybe I could do that. But I'm doing, there's other stuff that I have to do, like finish my Kingdom Hearts Let's Play, basically. And then, obviously, show my game. I would like to do it this week. But let's move on here. But anyways, like I said, these graphics right here are two very different styles, bro. Very, very different styles. Like, going back, I already mentioned how they use Aya Brea to stand out with graphics-wise. Harry is very distinct. You know, you can't fuck up how Harry looks like in a video game. You know, it's a boy with messed up hair, and he has glasses and a scar. You know, you can't see the scar because of the limitations of the graphics, and sometimes you can, depending what, you know, if they show the character's face a little bit more, and so it has a little bit of detail, and you can see the scar or something like that. But overall, other than that, they still was like, hey, we need to keep his facial features and all that, because what they had a reference for, if they had the movies, yes, but if they're going to make a game, they had to look at the reference of the art style that they used for the books, and that's what they did. Like, if I never watched the Harry Potter movies, right, and I just read all the books basically, but I played the games, which still are based on the movies. If I played the games and I saw this cover, I would have been like, oh yeah, this is exactly how it is in the Harry Potter books, basically. That type of art style, basically. It's just 3D, obviously. And again, the graphics in this game obviously do not hold up. They do look like trash. You would think that they would try to fix the graphics more for the sequel, but maybe it was because of time, or maybe because Warner Brothers was just like, yeah, no. But look at this. This is a whole map of the Hogwarts grounds, and this is considered a hub world right here. All right, it's just genius. Hogwarts school grounds. Look at that. You see that? You see, this is all you need. This is like Super Mario 64 type of level, bro. Seriously, man. It's great. It's great. Another thing that I forgot to point out too, because in the first Harry Potter game, you don't have a place that you can just explore everywhere. They're all places. They're all like rooms and doors you can explore and all that. But the Hogwarts doesn't open to you until you actually beat the game, you know? But even then, you're not exploring as much as in this game as in the first game. Mainly because it's very traditional. Very traditional. You know how on video games all back in the day when it was just like, here is a grid, basically. Not really a grid, but here's a pathway for you to go through, and you keep going through that pathway. Kind of like in Final Fantasy 13. That's a great example right there. Because there was games like that back in the day. And then once we got Final Fantasy 13, people started shitting on it, started complaining that, oh, you know, look at these other games that have this big open world and stuff like that. And here you just go into a linear pathway and stuff like that. I miss games that did have a linear pathway. Why? Because it, not because for development's sake or anything like that. It's mostly because we grew up with games like that back in the PS1 era. And it's so stupid and idiotic that people will not want that style back. because it's like what I said before. What is old is new and fresh again. If you did that, I guarantee you people will embrace the linear style of progression through the game. Now, if that's not for you, that's not for you. But that's basically how it was all in the PS2 era. There was some games that weren't like that, like this game, obviously. But look at Parasite Eve again. Parasite Eve is very linear. It is. It's very linear. You do have a kind of like a hub world area. You could choose where place you need to go. It's just a select screen, and you just go there, basically. That is linear as you're ever going to get, you know? And this game is linear, but it's terrific for it, you know? You might think it's open world, but it's not really open world, you know? But that's what I love about this game. This game is not going to be like Final Fantasy VIII. You know, Final Fantasy VIII has an open world. Parasite Eve has a hub world that you can select where to go. You want to go to the Empire State Building, you go there to select it. You want to go to the museum, you select it and you go there. Fun fact, if you go to the museum in this game, before you go to enter the museum, they have like a little chocobo on top of the museum, if you actually notice that. Nice detail. I like that. It's almost like Final Fantasy is in Outward. No. Fun fact, this game, and I do have it up there, and Chrono Trigger was going to be all in one, you know, including Final Fantasy VII. But they all got separated. That's another thing that I missed too. An idea that created not one, not two, but Chrono Trigger, Final Fantasy VII, Parasite Eve, and Final Fantasy VIII. That's 4 games right there that were thought of for Final Fantasy VII, but got split apart to 4 fucking games. That is good. That's awesome. And we still got what we got, to be quite honest with you. And if you really want to be, if you want to break it down, if you want to be that hardcore of a gamer, to be quite honest, like this is what I do. If you grab Parasite Eve, Final Fantasy VIII, Final Fantasy VII, and Chrono Trigger, if you have all of that and put them all together, basically, if you're playing them as a series and shit like that, that to you, at least for me, if I did that, would be the definitive version to play Final Fantasy VII. To me, that is the real Final Fantasy VII. You want to play the real Final Fantasy VII? Play Chrono Trigger. Play the original Final Fantasy VII. Play Final Fantasy VIII and Parasite Eve. That right there is your whole Final Fantasy VII. You got 4 fucking games there. 4 games. Each with different characters. Each different gameplay styles. Each different worlds. And different endings depending, you know, the Chrono Trigger has a different ending. So you know how awesome that shit is? When you really think about it? Think about that. I'm surprised Square Enix hasn't released a freaking collection of like, this is what Final Fantasy VII should have been. Or, you know, a what if scenario of this being Final Fantasy VII. You know? All they had to do was put all the games together in a package and be like, here, sell it. We just give it to you. You know? And you can have like a little manual book saying that these 4 games were originally going to be in one and it was going to be Final Fantasy VII, but we split them up into 4 pieces. We do have one game that is called Final Fantasy VII, but realistic-wise, this, and Chrono Trigger are the leftovers of Final Fantasy VII. And Final Fantasy VII is just the stuff that you ripped apart to make these games to make another game in general, basically. Because Final Fantasy VII was going to be like Parasite Eve. Was going to have a villain like you see in Final Fantasy 8. And the whole time traveling thing too is in Chrono Trigger. It's also in this game too. You know? So that's the thing right there. If Square actually had the right sense of mind to actually remake Final Fantasy VII, go back to the original basics of Final Fantasy VII. If you all gonna, I would have been open to it. If Square Enix said they were gonna remake Final Fantasy VII, let's say they didn't remake Final Fantasy VII, right? But if they said they are gonna do it, and they said that we're gonna go back to the basics of when we actually really wanted what Final Fantasy VII was, then I would have been like, oh, okay, so you're taking that Chrono Trigger aspect, Parasite Eve, Final Fantasy 8, and the original Final Fantasy 7, and put them all into one. So there's gonna be time travel and everything like that. And some people might not like that. Some people might not even ask for that, you know? And that's fine. But if you're gonna go back, I think that'd be more intriguing for me as a Final Fantasy 7 fan. I'm not a huge fan of Final Fantasy 7, but if you told me that, no, you know, the stuff that we separated as separate games, even though it was going to be part of the original Final Fantasy 7, yeah, we're going to do that. I would have been ecstatic. I would have been ecstatic. I would have. And did you know the original, supposedly the original character that we were going to get for Final Fantasy VII was going to be Aya Brea. Aya Brea was going to be the main character in Final Fantasy VII. So you know how some people say that, Lightning is just Cloud. But yet you guys never say that, no, Cloud is Aya Brea. Because Aya Brea was was already a theme before Cloud was, you know? Not to say Cloud wasn't still a concept. Maybe he was a different character, or maybe was there. But then they separated them, you know. So you can't if there's no Aya Brea, there's no Cloud Strife. If there's no Aya Brea, there is no Lightning. All right, seriously. Or should I say her real name, Claire? Oh, Claire Obscure? No. Although that is pretty cool. But anyways, anything else could talk about graphics and anything about video games right now? I think that's it. I just enjoy the graphic era of Final Fantasy 1 and PS1 and PS2 and also Super Nintendo and stuff like that. But the reason I want to point these out is because, again, look at the model for Eve. I know it's a cinematic cutscene, but she still looks like that in game, even though it kind of has like these type of graphics, which is fine. You know, they have a lot of themes with this game, and this game is really fun. You know, despite how many people talk flaws about this game, let's just say get good. How about that? Get good. No. How dare you? Well, how dare you? No. But again, look at these models here. You see? All right. You know, like nowadays, look at Final Fantasy 15. Final Fantasy 15 don't have summon characters like that. You know, oh yes they do. No man, it's mostly they more look like human characters. They don't look like monsters. They don't look like mythical gods. They look like they don't even look like Final Fantasy bosses anymore. You know, and Square Enix knew this because look at Final Fantasy 16. You know, which is a great concept of like, hey, I said this. I remember telling myself this years ago that wouldn't it be cool if they made a Final Fantasy game that you transform into these Final Fantasy summons. That you know, it's not a novel concept. Shin Megami Tensei has done this before Square has done it, and I think Square has already done this too, but with a different game. But it's just about execution at the end of the day. And plus, again, going back with the whole graphics, the whole models of these characters, they need to stand out. They need to stand out and be something that a lot of people can remember. Again, going back with Final Fantasy IX, these characters stand out. You know, even though you might not like this version of Final Fantasy, even though you might not be a big fan of it, you gotta admit this. These characters stand out compared to a game that you see nowadays. Like pick up. I got nothing against this game, but pick up the Last of Us game and compare both night and day. You know, but nothing against Ellie and Joel because those characters still hold up. They still, you know, graphically they're still great. You know, because they again going back, they had to. These developers, in a way, had to exaggerate what these characters look like. You know? They might look human, they might look like a person, but they still need to be in that realm of exaggeration, basically. You know? So how we do that? We do that either with how they look like or gameplay, you know, which is true because when you play The Last of Us, you have so many shit in your book bag, you'd be like, wouldn't that be heavy in real life? Wouldn't you want to put in the game of like a meter showing how heavy your book bag is, and you can't carry a lot of stuff? Why they didn't do that? Because it's not fun. It's not fun. It's not fun. Because that's too realistic and that's not fun. Reasons why I'm not a big fan of when some games like in like the Dark Souls series, when oh, you're too heavy so you can't swing or you can't roll. I don't like that at all. I hate that as a concept because it's not fun. I want to play the fucking game. Let me play the fucking game. Seriously, let me do what the fuck I want. That's like me playing an old school Final Fantasy game and I have armor, but I can't run or I can't even move because the armor is too heavy. Stop that. Stop that. Oh, no. It doesn't even have a weight. It just says that, oh, the reason you can't move is because you have this armor and the armor the defense armor is like about 1,000 and something. Sorry, you need to have armor that's less than 1,000 or some shit for you to move. It's ridiculous. To me, it's ridiculous. We shouldn't have shit like that in games, in my opinion. But a lot of people like that type of gameplay style. You know, I even hate when I'm fighting with enemies and then my weapon breaks. At that point, let me just use it as a regular item. You know, kind of like what I put in my game. In my game, I have a baseball bat that you can hit enemies with, basically. But it's just an item inside of your inventory. And yes, once you use it, it breaks, you know. But you can keep, and plus they're cheap to buy. But if you are going to use them, it won't be a main weapon. It would just be an item weapon that you hit an enemy with and it's gone, you know? So, because it breaks, basically. That I don't mind all that much. But if it's a main weapon that you use, then that's when I have a problem with. You know, it's kind of like, really? You know, you want me to keep going back and if we can try to do something with it, you know, how come it can't be like Final Fantasy, Dragon Quest 11, when I can make the thing stronger so it won't break, even though Final Fantasy 11 doesn't do that, but you know what I'm saying, basically, because you can upgrade your armor and swords or anything that you carrying and make them more powerful. That's why I love Dragon Quest 11. It's just like the what is it, the mechanics of you trying to make your armor and weapons really, really powerful. So freaking good. It's so great. I really like it a lot. But moving on, is there anything more I could say about video game stuff? I just want to tell you how much I love this type of stuff. So again, going back, graphics are not everything for a game. They're not, but they're all there to have an appealness for the audience to actually buy it. If you're not gonna have appealing characters, then no one's not gonna buy it. You know, if you don't have appealing characters, no one's not gonna play your game. No one's not gonna freaking think about your characters at all. And a good example is, again, going back, Final Fantasy 13. Some people don't like that game, but they will remember the fucking characters, even though they don't care for the characters. They will remember them because they have a distinctive art style, basically. You know, it really is. You know, it's the same thing going back to Ellie and Joel. If you put Ellie and Joel in the same realm as the characters in Resident Evil, they could match it. You could be like, no, they could be in that world. But at the same time, you know something's off. You know, if you put the Resident Evil characters right next to the Last of Us characters, you'd be like, yes, they could be in the same environment, but yet their clothes are so distinctive that you know they probably are not in the same realm of the same game, you know? So, and hey, if you do that with freaking Harry Potter and Parasite Eve, you know, everyone's going to be like, oh yeah, of course, duh, it's night and day, you know? So, it really is. Even if you do something like Harry Potter and Dragon Quest, in Final Fantasy 7, 9, sorry, too much Final Fantasy too. You know, they have different unique styles and all that, especially graphic-wise, but I'm talking about like art style wise. If you put them in the same, you know, category in the same room, you would know, you'd be like, that's from that game, that's from that game, instead of just being like, where you guys are from, you know? Even Grand Theft Auto does this. Grand Theft Auto, if you grabbed a model from Grand Theft Auto 4 and put it right next to Grand Theft Auto 5, it's night and day. It's very, very different, you know? They couldn't have similarities because Grand Theft Auto 4 and 5 are in the same universe, basically. Maybe that's a bad example, but I mean, if we're going to talk about like models now, video game models nowadays, there's that. So that's just me. That's just me. So I think that's really it, guys. Tell me what you guys think about video game graphics overall. The fine details of what you could do with these graphic style in any console before the PS4 and PS5 era is freaking awesome, in my opinion. It is. It's freaking awesome. It's freaking great. And going back to Super Smash Brothers Melee, those models are fucking phenomenal, and they haven't been the same at all. Like I like the Super Smash Brothers Brawl graphics and Ultima graphics also. But it seems like Ultima was trying to lead more into the Melee graphics, and then they were like, we still need to be our own thing. Which I'm still like, I get it, because you're a new game and all that, but still, I wish you can bring those type of graphics back, you know? And another thing is too, how come, remember, like I said at the beginning of this video, how come these video game developers cannot take a concept of PS1 or PS2 graphics and actually bring it back? Like, let's have a game that has PS2 graphics or PS1 graphics. Oh, that's not marketable enough. No, it's not marketable for you because you don't know how to market it. But for gamers like me, that grew up in the 90s and 2000s and in the 80s and 70s and shit like that grew up with these games, we don't care. We don't care. All we care is if the graphics, all we care is that if the game is good and the story is awesome and the gameplay is fun. You know? We're not stubborn to be like, oh, look at this PS5 game that looks like PS2 graphics. What if that's just the art style? Now, if you fuck it up graphic-wise, then yes, you fuck it up. But if that is the intention, I'm not fucking it up, but if that's the intention of the art style, then it can stick out. You know? There's plenty of people around here. I'm seeing clips online that people are using the PS1 graphics and PS2 graphics in modern hardware. These indie devs are literally doing stuff that a lot of AAA companies don't even want to do. Oh, why are you making a game that has PS1 graphics? Don't you want to use high-ranking graphics? No, I don't. And I'm going to create a character that complements that type of graphic wise, basically. You know? Again, going back, when people use the tool engine of the play PS1 and PS2, guess what they do? They look at what they could make. Yes, they can make a human character, but what's going to pop more? And a animal, a humanoid animal like Crash Bandicoot that could stand out and be really colorful, or a human character that will look good or fine, but over time will probably be like, they could look a little bit better. And we know they can look better because look at the Final Fantasy IX graphics. They look really good. They look really, really good. They still hold up to this day. Compared to Final Fantasy VIII, you know? And I don't hate the Final Fantasy VIII graphics, but compared to Final Fantasy IX, oh yeah, they literally did show they literally showed more of the aspect of how much they can actually put graphics inside that little system of PlayStation 1, you know? So tell me what you guys think down below. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Do you think these video game companies should not use PS1 and PS2 graphics or even PS3 graphics as an art style form? You know, I won't see why not. You know, imagine the PS1 graphics, right? But with but with the lighting and shading that we have today, oh my goodness, it would look fucking awesome. You know? And here's another problem too that a lot of people point out. The reason it's so hard to get that polygon thing right is because they don't have the hardware to make those type of polygons. You know? That's why when you play Spyro, the Reunited Trilogy, and you could use a cheat code to have Crash look like his PS1 model, it's not really his PS1 model. Basically. Like, it looks like his PS1 model, But if you look at his PS1 model, it's literally not that at all, because it's very hard to replicate that. You know, because nowadays these video game companies are so stubborn to be like, oh man, yeah, it might look like the PS1. Yeah, we might want to look like the PS1 graphics, but we're so desperate to put more of the fine details and stuff like that. It's like, no, man, that's the whole point about these graphics. They didn't have fine detail. That's why they had to exaggerate with their characters. You know, seriously, that's why they had to exaggerate with their characters. Again, going back, look at Final Fantasy IX. You know. Look at again. Look at Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. You know, there's so many games out there that don't. There's so many games out there that don't do certain things, and that is fine. You know, it's all about how the game developer and the people that making these games and put money into these games will want to see. You know, even the shareholders sometimes look at these video game companies and they're like, you guys are playing it too safe. And it's funny too, because some of these shareholders are actually complaining to other studios, saying that you guys are not pushing the boundaries. You guys are playing it safe. And that might be good for some of us, but majority of us, we don't want that. We want something new. We want something fresh. Yes, we might put money on things that will make us money because it's safe, basically. But overall, we still want something new. Give me something new so I could put a lot of money on it. Because if you're just going to give me the same thing, don't expect me to put more money on it. I'm just going to put the same amount of money on it, and then you're going to be questioning why haven't you put more money into this product. Easy. You're playing it safe. That's why I only gave you $1. If you weren't playing it safe, I give you $100, for example, you know? So there's that. So this is the CHUCKY signing off. I'll see you guys later. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and tell me what you guys think down below about this video, like I said. And what's your favorite graphics still to this day? Is it the PS1, PS2, PS3, Xbox 360, Xbox? I haven't even talked about the Xbox. The Xbox graphics compared to the PS2 is night and day. But they both have their issues. They both have limitations, but they still are so good. So good, all right? Really, really good. So, yeah, and tell me what's your favorite character models from any other video game. It could be from back in the old days, from the Atari 2600 all the way to the, PS3 era, So what's your favorite type of models of video games? It could be anything from Call of Duty to literally SpongeBob SquarePants, So you let me know, guys. What's your favorite models in all these video games that you have played over the years? It could be anything. It doesn't even have to be a household name video game. Just put it in the comment section and you can tell me about it, I remember playing, shout out to Yugami, if you're watching this video. I remember playing Hugo the Evil Mirror, if you had ever played that game on the PS1. And the graphics on that are not bad. They're not bad. I remember playing it a few years ago, and they still kind of hold up. They do. They kind of hold up. Obviously, they show the limitations of those graphics, but they still hold up to the point that you're like, this is actually pretty good. I can see why they made them into trolls, or why a game like this was made. It's easy to make. These are humanoid animal characters, or like trolls or goblins and shit like that. It's just really easy to make, and it's very fun to make. It's like these Looney Tunes games on the PS1 and 2. They're just really, really fun to make because some of them already have triangles and squares and ovals, so they already are shaped characters. So it's easy to transition to them into video game form, basically. So it's, again, just awesome. Reasons why we had, again, other video game characters that looked very different, and then when you brought them into graphics like the PS4 and PS5, now it's like, yeah, you have more polygons to work with, but at the same time, now you're going to make that character not as fresh and defined because you're not working with limitations anymore. Seriously. Again, not to say these games these hardwares don't have limitations. It's just that now it's so different that limitation is not handcuffed. You're not handcuffed. Because if you're all handcuffed, it will bring more of the creative juices of what you want to bring into the table of your game. So that's just me. I'll see you guys later and be safe.